I was sipping my coffee when HOA Karen marched down my driveway, demanding the key to my gate like she was storming a castle. HOA demanded my gate key for lake access. Cops showed up instead. Part 1. The gate, the clipboard, and the cult parade. I had just taken the first sip of my coffee when I saw her, high heels, clipboard, marching down my driveway like she owned the soil beneath her. Behind her? A slow-moving parade of HOA loyalists, carrying lawn chairs and smug entitlement like it was a national flag. She stopped at my gate, tapped it with her pen like a general leading a siege, and declared, "We'll be needing your key by Monday. We voted. It's official." I nearly choked on my coffee. Because what she didn't know, what she should have known, was that this wasn't just a gate. It was the front line of her legal disaster. It had started as a perfectly normal Saturday. Birds chirping, lake shimmering just beyond the trees. No leaf blowers, no noise, just peace. My house sat on several acres of inherited land, far enough from suburbia to breathe, but close enough that the HOA could still smell it. And now, they wanted in. You see the lake behind my property? It's a hidden gem, spring-fed, clean, pristine, and only accessible through a handful of old legacy properties like mine. The HOA neighborhood was built years later, fenced away by law and history. They could see the lake, but not reach it. And apparently that had driven some of them, especially her, completely insane. I had always played nice, waved, towed a neighbor's car once, even donated a generator during a winter outage. But then, Karen showed up, the new HOA president, and the self-declared queen of rules. She strutted into that role like she'd been elected mayor of a small dictatorship. Rules multiplied overnight, grass height, curtain colors, even trash bin alignment. But this was next level. She tapped her pen again, tap, tap, like she was summoning royalty. "Excuse me?" she said, loudly. "We've had a vote. The community agrees your gate is the most logical access point to the lake." I blinked. "You mean, you want me to hand over the key to my private gate?" "Yes," she said cheerfully. "It's in everyone's best interest. The current path is too long. Your driveway is faster. It's a matter of community efficiency." I took a slow sip of coffee, mostly to stop myself from laughing. Behind her, one of her clipboard minions was literally setting up a lawn chair on my property line. Another had brought a picnic basket. They were acting like they had already claimed it. "Karen," I said, trying to stay polite, "I'm not part of the HOA. This land is mine, not governed by your bylaws. My gate stays locked." She didn't even blink. "Well, proximity implies cooperation, and the lake is technically community adjacent." I stared at her. That sentence didn't even make legal sense. "We've already voted. If you don't comply, we'll have to report you for obstruction." I chuckled. "To who? The HOA police?" Her eyes narrowed. Her voice dropped. "You'll regret this decision Don't say I didn't give you a chance." And just like that, she turned and walked away, like a queen dismissing a peasant. The rest of her HOA circus followed, but not before someone dropped a printed flyer in my mailbox that read, "New Lake Access Route, Gate Key Pickup Monday at noon." That night, my motion sensors went off, and I knew this wasn't over. This was war. Part 2, the fence, the flashlights, and the first strike. That night, I barely slept. I kept replaying the image in my head. Karen, heels clacking like war drums, her little HOA army treating my land like a public sidewalk. And then the motion sensors went off. Again. I checked the footage. 2 silhouettes, creeping along the tree line in yoga pants and hoodies, flashlights in hand, like teenagers on a dare. Except these weren't teenagers. They were scouting, testing the boundary, looking for another way in. I leaned closer to the screen and paused the footage. Yup, there she was, Karen. The red blazer gave her away, same one she wore during her clipboard coronation. She wasn't done. She was plotting. So I made a call. To my cousin Sam. Sam isn't just family. He's a sheriff's deputy, and he knows every inch of this county better than Google Maps. When I explained what happened, he gave a low whistle. They really think a vote gives them the right to seize land? Apparently, I muttered, forwarding him the flyer. He laughed, one of those dry, sheriff-style laughs that usually means bad idea detected. These HOA folks been watching too many courtroom dramas? The next morning, I went full home alone, upgraded the locks, installed high-definition cameras with cloud backup, put up new signs, big ones, private property, no trespassing, video surveillance active. And then I sat down at my kitchen table and opened a fresh document on my laptop. I titled it Operation Gatekeeper. I wasn't just going to protect my land, I was going to bury them in evidence. I spent the weekend pulling out every document I had, GPS maps, land surveys, the original deed, zoning records from 30 years ago. All of it confirmed the same thing. My gate, my land, not theirs. And just for good measure, I emailed everything to my lawyer and CC'd Sam. By Sunday night, my backyard looked like a high fortress. But I wasn't done, because if I knew Karen, and by now I did, she wasn't backing off. She was just getting warmed up. Part 3. The locksmith and the law Monday arrived. And with it, the circus. I just stepped onto my porch, coffee in one hand, phone in the other, when I saw it. A caravan, 3 sedans, 1 minivan, and a pickup with a ladder strapped to the top. They rolled down the dirt road like they were filming an HOA documentary titled How to Get Sued in 5 Easy Steps. Out stepped Karen, heels again, of course, strutting like the queen of cul-de-sac command. Behind her, 3 board members, a picnic basket, and a locksmith. Yes, a real one. Tool belt, name tag, the whole thing. They marched to the gate like they owned it. I stayed exactly where I was. Top of the driveway, GoPro mounted, arms crossed. Karen raised her hand like she was about to bless the land. You're making this more difficult than it needs to be, Dylan. I sipped my coffee. You're trespassing. You've been warned. She smiled, like I was a child who'd just said a bad word at dinner. I'll be submitting a formal complaint to our legal committee. The one with 0 jurisdiction over me? I replied. No answer. Just a flick of the wrist. She motioned to the locksmith. The man looked hesitant. Clearly, he'd been told this was HOA, approved and blessed by some imaginary ordinance. But he moved toward the gate anyway, tools in hand. And then, flashing lights. 2 squad cars rolled up the county road like deliverance in uniform. I almost dropped my coffee from how perfectly timed it was. Out stepped Sam. He didn't look angry. He looked tired, like this wasn't even in his top 10 dumbest HOA calls this year. Sam walked right up to the locksmith, who'd frozen with one hand midair, and said, "Sir, you're about to commit trespassing and attempted destruction of private property. I suggest you back away." The man stepped back so fast he nearly tripped over his own toolbox. Karen stormed up, fuming. "He's working under HOA authority." Sam didn't even blink. "The HOA doesn't have authority here. This is private land." Then, calm as can be. "Not only are you trespassing, but you just tried to enforce false legal action against someone outside your jurisdiction." Karen's face went red. "We had a vote." "And the court's going to love hearing about that," Sam replied, pulling out his citation pad. As the officers began writing citations, and one HOA member tried to pretend he was just an observer, I turned to look at my gate, my beautiful, peaceful, completely legal gate, that had somehow become the center of a suburban turf war. Karen was now yelling into her phone. The locksmith had already driven off. Sam was jotting down license plate numbers. And me? I took another slow sip of my coffee and whispered to myself, "This is gonna be fun." Part 4. The Red Line and the Realtor. The days after the gate showdown were quiet. Too quiet. Karen wasn't the type to go radio silent unless she was planning something worse. And I had that itch. The kind that told me the eye of the storm was just passing overhead. Then came the first clue. I was running errands when I stopped by the local post office. That's when I saw it, pinned to the bulletin board, next to a flyer for a lost cat and someone selling slightly used bunk beds. A sheet of paper, cheaply laminated, poorly formatted, and screaming of HOA delusion. Community Lake Access Initiative Site Chief? Phase 2 begins? And there it was, a crude map of the neighborhood, a red dotted line running right through my driveway. At the bottom, pending access approval. No official seal, no names, no signatures, just pure Karen energy. I stood there holding my mail, blinking at this hallucination on glossy paper. Then I actually laughed, out loud, in front of a confused postal worker. Pending what? Permission from a parallel universe? Still, I didn't act immediately. I wanted to see what Karen's next official move would be. And sure enough, 2 days later, I got my answer. My neighbor Greg, the local gossip delivery system, walked over while pretending to be out with his dog. He leaned on my fence like it was his therapist and whispered, "You know Karen's holding a special HOA vote tomorrow, right?" I raised an eyebrow. "Let me guess. Something about legal right-of-way through my gate?" He nodded solemnly. "She says the community's been using the lake unofficially for years, that it's implied access." I snorted. "That's not implied. That's called fantasy." Greg chuckled, then hesitated. "Also, she called you a gatekeeping hillbilly." I laughed harder than I probably should have. I'm flattered. But inside, I knew this wasn't just a petty insult war anymore. Karen was trying to manufacture a narrative, one where I was the villain and she was the poor, persecuted president, and if I didn't shut it down fast, she might actually convince a few people. So the next morning, I got in my truck and drove to the county records office. Jessica, an old friend from high school, worked the front desk. I explained the situation, showed her the flyer, and asked the question, "Has Karen filed anything official?" Jessica sighed, typed, then leaned back. "Yup. She filed a notice claiming the HOA is investigating historical access through Lakeview Drive My Road, my land. She printed out every related document she could find, zoning maps, deed stamps, and a survey from 30 years ago. And there it was, crystal clear. My land predated the HOA. The lake path had always been private. The gravel drive, built by me, funded by me, maintained by me. Karen wasn't rewriting history. She was inventing a fairy tale. I went home, scanned everything, and created a folder on my desktop. HOA Delusion Files. It felt good to be prepared, but I had a feeling. I'd need more than proof to stop what was coming next. Part 5. The Whisper from Within. 2 nights after compiling the HOA Delusion Files, I got a phone call. Blocked number. I almost didn't answer, but something told me to pick up. "Hello?" There was a pause. Then a low voice. "It's Ron, the HOA treasurer. We need to talk. In person." "Ron?" I barely knew the guy. He always looked like he'd rather be gardening than governing, and usually tried to disappear during meetings. So when he said, "Can you meet me at the gas station outside the neighborhood?" Not here. Too many eyes. I knew something was up. I drove out there, parked under a flickering light, and spotted Ron leaning against his car like he was in a spy movie. No wave, no small talk. Just this. "She's going too far." Karen. Of course. Ron looked around nervously before continuing. "She wants the board to approve hiring a contractor and to relocate your gate." I blinked. Relocate? That's her new word for trespass. She says it'll be temporary, that we'll deal with legalities later. I stared at him. That's not how property works. That's how breaking and entering works. He nodded like it pained him to agree. "She's also pushing us to hire a private surveyor. Says if she can prove community use, she can file for easement." I crossed my arms. "Tell her I said good luck, and tell her to bring bail money." Ron sighed deeply. "If she keeps this up, someone's going to end up in real trouble." I thanked him and drove home. But I wasn't laughing anymore. This wasn't just an HOA power trip. It was a ticking time bomb. So I called the only person who understood the legal side better than anyone. Sam. Deputy. Cousin. Human lie detector. When I explained everything, Sam's tone changed instantly. "You're not wrong. This is escalating fast. I'll notify the county sheriff's office just in case." We both knew it. Karen couldn't help herself, especially if she thought I was out of town. So we made a plan. I baited the trap. The next day, I posted on the neighborhood forum. "Heading up north for the weekend. Cabin's calling." I even staged it. Let Greg overhear me at the diner, mentioned needing to unplug. Then I got to work. Motion detector in the gravel, wired straight to my phone. Fake signs. Live surveillance zone. Active remote monitoring. Printed in bold. New trail cam hidden in a bird feeder across from the gate. Spare car parked far from the property line, truck locked in the garage. By Friday evening, the house looked empty. But I wasn't gone. I was sitting in my living room, lights off, drink in hand, and a tablet screen glowing on my lap. At 8:42 p.m., the sensor pinged. 3 figures, flashlights, 1 toolbox, and one of them in a red blazer. Karen. Of course. She really couldn't help herself. I watched, waited, until the camera caught the exact moment they started unscrewing the bottom hinge of the gate. Then, I tapped the emergency alert. Sam got the ping, and within 15 minutes, headlights lit up the woods like a crime scene. Karen froze like a raccoon in high beams. Uniformed deputies emerged from behind the trees, moving fast. One of them barked, "Step away from the gate!" Karen stammered something about community access and emergency lake pathways, but the deputy wasn't buying it. "You're holding bolt cutters, ma'am. That's not requesting access. That's attempted break-in." I watched from my window, sipping my drink like I was watching a movie. Karen was arrested, on my property, with 2 accomplices standing there like extras in a bad crime show. And the best part? It was all caught in HD. This wasn't just neighborhood drama anymore. It was officially a legal mess. And Karen? She had just kicked open the gate to her own downfall. Part 6. Viral Justice. By sunrise, Karen's arrest was the talk of the town, but not in the way she probably imagined. Her mugshot? It didn't just leak, it exploded. 3 local Facebook groups shared it before breakfast. Someone even turned it into a meme, her clutching bolt cutters under the caption, "Karen tries DIY breaking and entering edition." Even Greg, who once thought TikTok was a type of clock, somehow found the video and played it loudly while walking his dog past my fence. He was laughing so hard he had to stop and catch his breath. The HOA. Radio. Silence. No press release, no email, not even a half-hearted "we're investigating" statement. They were too stunned, or maybe too embarrassed. Honestly, I half expected Karen to lay low, hide inside, maybe pretend none of it ever happened. But this was Karen. She didn't retreat. She doubled down. That Monday, I opened my mailbox and found a certified letter, thick, overly stapled, smelled like desperation perfume. It was from the HOA. Inside was a formal complaint, signed by Karen and 2 board members who probably hadn't read it, accusing me of community obstruction, emotional distress, and my favorite, interference with communal goals. Apparently, denying lake access had caused massive psychological strain on the HOA's ability to enjoy nature. One line actually read, "The defendant's gate has severely hindered collective recreation and unity." I nearly dropped the letter from laughing so hard. Collective recreation? What were they planning back there? Synchronized kayaking? I didn't even bother calling my lawyer. Instead, I handed the envelope to Sam, who stopped by with a box of donuts and some updates from the sheriff's office. He skimmed the letter, shook his head, and muttered, "She really thinks she's the mayor of your property, huh?" But that wasn't even the biggest twist. That same night, I got an anonymous email. No name, no subject line, just one attachment. Audio recordings. At first I thought it was junk. Then I heard her voice, Karen, clear as day, saying, "If we can get 5 members to say they've always used the lake trail, we can argue historical use. No one will check." Another voice, probably Ron, replied nervously, "Isn't that like falsifying records?" Karen's answer chilled me. "Only if we get caught." That was it. This wasn't just about trespassing anymore. It was premeditated fraud. She was trying to fabricate a fake narrative, manufacture evidence, and lie her way into stealing access to my land. But what she didn't know? I'd been documenting everything since day 1. I had a folder so thick it could stop a bullet, and I was ready to use it. The next morning, I walked into my lawyer's office like I was walking into battle, dropped the audio file on his desk. James, calm, sharp, and slightly amused by all this, listened quietly. When it ended, he looked up and said, "This woman just handed us a legal wrecking ball." We filed a counter-motion that same afternoon, not just denying the HOA's complaint, but moving to block any future arbitration attempts, citing harassment, attempted fraud, and documented conspiracy. James included security cam footage, HOA flyers, and forged claims, property deeds, and that delicious audio file. By the time I left his office, I felt something I hadn't in weeks. Calm. Karen was unraveling, and I wasn't just defending my gate anymore. I was about to end this HOA circus. Part 7. Karen's crown cracks. It all started unraveling with a burger. That weekend, I hosted a small backyard barbecue, partly to unwind, partly to let the neighborhood know I wasn't hiding, and mostly just because I felt like it. Greg brought a cooler full of off-brand soda. Ron, yes, that Ron, the HOA treasurer, showed up late with his dog and a bottle of wine that looked like it cost more than his entire patio set. We grilled. We laughed. No one mentioned the word committee, or access point, or community unity. And just as I was flipping a second round of burgers, Ron tapped me on the shoulder and said quietly, "She's losing the board." I turned to him, eyebrow raised. He looked tired. Like 3 nights of sleeping on the couch tired. "Half of them are scared. She spent HOA money without approval, paid the locksmith, ran a Facebook ad about the new lake trail, printed flyers, all without a single vote. I blinked. Wait, she used HOA funds to advertise a path through my land? He nodded. Charged it to the association card. Said it was part of her presidential duties. That was the final straw. It wasn't just bold anymore. It was illegal. So the next day I drafted a formal letter, calm, professional, and sharp enough to slice concrete. In it, I outlined Karen's unauthorized spending, the illegal gate tampering, the forged narrative of lake access. And the audio recording of her coaching board members to lie, I included receipts, deed copies, and a printed transcript of her infamous "only if we get caught" quote. I sent copies to every board member. And, just for fun, I CC'd the county district attorney. Within 48 hours, I got a reply from a newer board member, Terry, who had joined a few months ago and still had some sense. Thank you for your documentation. We're calling an emergency session to review her conduct. And then, things took a turn even Karen didn't see coming. Still thinking she was untouchable, Karen filed an official complaint with the county. She claimed I was restricting community access to a shared natural water resource. In her words, since the lake touches HOA land at one curve, the entire lake should be accessible to residents. Her logic? Because the lake barely brushed up against their territory. They should have full access through my driveway and gate. What she didn't know? That lake was co-owned by 5 private properties, mine included, and regulated by a trust that explicitly blocked any outside claims. Jessica, my friend from the records office, confirmed it. Her complaint has no legal standing, but it did trigger an alert with the Lake Trust Board. In other words, Karen just escalated her fantasy into an official legal inquiry. And the HOA... They were about to hit the panic button. The next board meeting was closed to the public, but I didn't need to be there. Ron called me that night, breathless. It was a massacre, he said. Karen had screamed, cried, threatened to sue everyone, even accused the board of mutiny. But in the end, they voted her out, stripped of her title, access revoked, funds frozen, official community statement issued, denouncing her conduct. Linda, the newly elected president, a soft-spoken retired librarian, showed up at my gate the next morning with a handwritten apology and an offer to reimburse me for every damaged item. I shook her hand and said, "Just promise me one thing." She smiled. "No more votes about your land, I swear." And just like that, Karen's reign was over. Part 8, the lawsuit no one saw coming. I thought it was over. Karen had been dethroned. The HOA board had flipped. Linda was in charge. And for the first time since I moved in, peace felt possible. Until a week later, when a manila envelope appeared on my porch like a cursed Amazon delivery. No return address. Just my name in red ink. Underlined twice. Inside, a lawsuit, filed by none other than Karen Prescott. She was suing me for emotional distress, for reputational damage, for obstruction of community vision. I sat down right there on the porch and started reading aloud, just to make sure I wasn't hallucinating. Plaintiff can no longer walk her dog past defendant's gate without suffering emotional anguish triggered by gravel crunching underfoot. I had to read it twice. Then I laughed so hard, I nearly dropped the entire packet into my koi pond. I called my lawyer, James, a guy who once ate a deposition transcript just to prove a point in law school. He wasn't amused. "This is a textbook nuisance suit," he said. "She's not expecting to win. She's expecting to wear you down until you settle." But what Karen never understood, I don't get tired. I get organized. James and I fired back with a countersuit. harassment, trespassing, property damage, attempted illegal modification of private infrastructure, misuse of HOA funds, and one beautifully documented timeline of every single violation she'd committed. We included high-definition security footage, HOA financial records, courtesy of Ron, a signed affidavit from the Lake Trust, screenshots of flyers, Facebook ads, and board emails, and a printed copy of the HOA's own disciplinary statement. It wasn't just a response. It was a legal carpet bomb. Court day arrived like the season finale of a reality show. Karen showed up in a blinding white suit, like she was auditioning for the Real Housewives of Suburbia. And yes, she brought cameras. Her niece was filming everything for a TikTok account called at HOA Justice Queen. I walked in with James, quiet and calm. We didn't bring a camera crew. We brought evidence. The judge, a no-nonsense woman in a black robe and sharper glasses, read through the case summary out loud. She paused halfway. This lawsuit is about a locked gate on private land? Karen jumped up like she was at a TED Talk. Your Honor, this is bigger than a gate. This is about community fairness and toxic selfishness and— Sit down, the judge said. Karen sat down. So did her lawyer, who already looked like he regretted every life choice that led him to this moment. Then James stood up and handed the judge our folder. Inside, photos of the gate damage, audio transcripts of Karen coaching board members to lie financial statements showing unauthorized spending, HOA's official vote, removing her A map, proving the lake wasn't public, screenshots of her ridiculous shortcut to peace Facebook ad, and my deed, signed, sealed, county stamped. The judge took her time. 20 full minutes passed in total silence. Until she looked up. Miss Prescott, you entered private land. You attempted to seize access through unlawful means. You misused community funds and falsified claims. Karen stood, but I was trying to help the neighborhood. By breaking into someone's gate? With bolt cutters? Dead silence. The judge dismissed her lawsuit with prejudice, meaning she couldn't refile it, then turned to our side and ruled in our favor. Karen was ordered to pay for the broken gate, cover all court costs, reimburse my legal fees, and provide a written apology through the HOA. But the best part? The judge referred the fraudulent HOA spending to the county prosecutor's office for potential criminal charges. Karen didn't yell. She didn't cry. She just stared forward like someone had unplugged her ego. Even the TikTok camera stopped recording. As I walked out of the courtroom, someone had already posted the ruling on our neighborhood group chat. Karen's key to nowhere. I didn't post a single thing. I didn't need to, because that day, the law did all the talking. Part 9. Shortcut denied. You'd think after the courtroom humiliation, the board removal, the fines, the near-criminal charges, Karen would disappear quietly, sell her house, leave the neighborhood, maybe write a memoir titled How I Got Outlawed by a Gate. But this was Karen. And Karen doesn't know how to retreat. She just recalculates. 1 week after the verdict, I was back to my usual peace. Coffee on the porch, bird song over the lake, my gate standing tall like a monument to common sense. Then, another man showed up. Pressed suit, perfect teeth, the kind of handshake that screams, I'm here to offer you a bad idea in a fancy envelope. Hi, I'm Ethan, with Lakeside Ventures, LLC. Oh no, not again. He had a leather folder under one arm and a smile that felt more manufactured than a timeshare brochure. He launched into his pitch before I could shut the door. We've recently acquired property near the edge of the HOA community. And We'd love to partner with you to offer curated lake experiences to upscale renters. He said it with the confidence of someone who thought I didn't already own a flamethrower for this exact kind of nonsense. Then, he opened the folder. Inside, a lease agreement. They wanted to rent access through my gate, monthly payments, minimal disturbance. Discreet hand-picked clientele. I stared at him for a long moment, then asked, "Did Karen send you?" He laughed, a little too loudly. "Karen? No idea who that is." Liar. His body language practically screamed, "I was warned about you." I declined, politely but firmly, but the smile on his face twitched. He tried guilt, then flattery, then veiled threat. Resistance like this often leads to legal misunderstandings. Wrong move. I leaned in, just enough to make him blink. "You want to find out how deep those misunderstandings can go? Go ahead. I've got court records, sheriff's reports, and a legal trail 10 miles long that says I don't bluff." He left, didn't say goodbye, didn't even look back. But 2 days later, a brochure appeared in my mailbox. No stamp, no return address. Inside, glossy mock-ups of cabins, kayaks, and floating docks, all designed for lakeside haven, the future of elite recreation. In tiny print, near the corner, pending easement approval. Oh, Ethan, you brought PowerPoint to a gate fight. I didn't wait this time. I forwarded the brochure to James. We filed a cease and desist against Lakeside Ventures, citing recent court rulings, property boundaries, harassment patterns, prior HOA entanglements. I also looped in the Lake Trust Board, just in case Ethan tried to bribe his way through the back door. And wouldn't you know it, Greg, my neighbor with the eternal flashlight accident, showed up with the same brochure. Someone had offered him $10,000 for a slice of shoreline. He declined, but his hands were shaking. "They're pushing hard," he said, "trying to pick us off one by one." I nodded. "They don't realize I'm not guarding a gate anymore. I'm guarding the whole damn lake." To everyone's surprise, it was the HOA, yes, the actual HOA, that struck the final blow. Under Linda's leadership, they issued a formal public statement. The HOA does not endorse, support, or permit any commercial development or third-party partnerships involving community land or access points. Printed, posted, mailed, pinned to every community board, including the one Karen used to rule like a miniature throne. And just like that, Lakeside Ventures vanished. Their website went offline. Their local office shut down. Their salesman ghosted. No more glossy folders. No more lease offers. No more gravel-crunching emissaries and polished loafers. I installed a new gate. Taller, stronger, sensor-equipped, with a handmade wooden sign that simply read, "Private Road." No shortcuts. It wasn't a threat. It was a reminder. A boundary carved in wood and principle. Life went back to normal. Greg fixed his fence. Linda invited me to the first real community dinner. No clipboards allowed. Kids rode bikes down the street. People smiled at each other again. The lake? Clear. Calm. Unbothered by the history it had just endured. One evening, as the sun dipped low, I sat at the water's edge, just listening, and I thought. All of this, all of it, over a gate, a 5-minute shortcut. But maybe, sometimes it takes people losing their minds to finally find their boundaries. Karen's house, sold, the new owners, a retired couple who planted sunflowers and waved at everyone. No drama, no lawsuits, no HOA posters stapled to mailboxes. Just peace. Pure, earned, peaceful, quiet. I kept the broken padlock from the old gate, the one Karen tried to saw off in the dark. Mounted it on a wooden board in my garage. Above it, in permanent marker, I wrote one word, N-O-P-E, and that pretty much summed it up. Epilogue, the gate stands still. It's funny how something as simple as a gate can become the symbol of an entire war. And now, that gate doesn't creak, doesn't get tested, doesn't even get looked at funny. It just stands, quiet, untouched, respected. Karen never came back. Oh, sure, I heard rumors someone spotted her in a town 3 counties over starting a community awareness group. Another neighbor claimed she was trying to write a book, The Suburban Resistance. But around here, she became a legend. For all the wrong reasons. Greg says her name in a whisper now, like she's a ghost that appears if you say it 3 times near a property line. Mara just laughs. Karen wasn't a person. She was a cautionary tale with a clipboard. As for me, I sleep easy now. No weird flyers, no surprise votes, no morning invasions with picnic baskets and bolt cutters, just the sound of frogs by the lake and wind rustling the trees. My cameras still on, not because I expect trouble, but because I like rewatching the moment Karen realized the cops weren't there to help her. They were there to stop her. That footage? Gold. Mara still drops by. We sit by the water, sip something cold, and relive the chaos like war veterans swapping stories. Sometimes we even joke about starting our own HOA, one with one rule. Respect the gate or meet the jello. I never sold, never leased, never budged. Not because I'm stubborn, but because peace isn't something you ask for. It's something you guard. And sometimes, guarding it means saying no to shortcuts, to entitled neighbors, to people who think community means control. The sun sets over the lake now with nothing in its way. And if you stand at the edge of my dock just long enough, you'll hear it. Not a sound of conflict, but of laughter. Birdsong. The gentle lap of water against stone. And, if you're lucky, Mara shouting from a lawn chair, "Hey, don't forget the Jell-O powder!" Because around here, that's history. And the gate? Still locked, still proud, still mine.